Okay, this is chapter 7.4 of the notes, the other trigonometric functions. We are going to knock out pages 7 and 8 together. There is not much on page 7. A couple of things that we want to point out are even functions. Okay, those are the functions that when we plug in the negative x, we get the exact same y as if we plug in positive x. And we are going to match this all up. Our even trig functions are the cosine of x and the secant of x, because secant is 1 over cosine. Kind of important to just remember that cosine is your only even function, the basic functions, and then secant follows. Odd functions then are everything else. So don't waste the time trying to figure out, memorize which ones are even and which ones are odd. Know which ones are even. If you know that cosine is even, you know that 1 over cosine, which is secant, is also even. Everything else is odd. Okay, so our odd functions are sine, 1 over sine, which is cosecant, tangent, which is sine over cosine, and that's, odd because of the sine part, and also cotangent. Right? So what we're going to do is see if we can make sense of these. Lots of repetition here. Even function. Opposite x values have the same y value. And our odd functions are where the opposite x values have the opposite y values. Okay, so let's take a look at our circle here. Okay, we want to compare the cosine of theta with the cosine of negative theta. So we're just kind of showing this even and odd part. Let me blow this up for you. So here's my cosine of 30. Let's be smart about this and use the highlighter. Let's be smart about this and make the highlighter useful. So we got cosine of 30. And then our negative 30 is 330. And we're just comparing the cosine. So positive square root of 3 over 2, positive square root of 3 over 2. 45. Negative 45, again, cosines are our x values. We're just comparing the cosines. Positive square root of 2 over 2, positive square root of 2 over 2. And we can do this again with the 60 degrees. We get positive 1/2 at negative 60 degrees. Cosine is still positive 1/2. Okay? So cosine theta, cosine negative theta, are the values the same or different? They are the same. That's what makes it an even function. Now let's take a look at our sines. Same values. Positive 30 degrees, negative 30 degrees. We get a positive 1/2 for y, we get a negative 1/2 for y. 45 degrees, we got a positive 45 degrees, we got a negative 45 degrees. We get positive square root of 2 over 2, negative square root of 2 over 2. Same thing with the 60 degrees. The sine of pi over 3 is positive square root of 3 over 2. For negative pi over 3, we get a negative square root of 3 over 2. So when we compare sine of theta with sine of negative theta, are they the same or different? They are different because they are opposite. We got the opposite values. Did I spell that right? That's what makes it an odd function. Okay, on to page 8. So they talk about drawing in that 30, 60, 90 triangle. We can do that. Here's my 30, 60, 90. We're going to look at the exact same thing we just looked at up above. Square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. That was our positive 30. Plus 30. And now if we reflect that over the x-axis, now our theta is negative 30. We still get positive square root of 3 over 2. Our sine is negative 1/2. Okay. So let's walk through this next group. Exercise 7a. Sine of theta is 0.6. We know that sine is an odd function, so if we plug in negative theta, we get negative 0.6. B, cosine of theta is 0.25. And if it helps, look up here. My cosines are positive, whether theta is positive or negative. It really doesn't matter what the angle is. It's still going to reflect over the x-axis. If the cosine of theta is positive 0.25, then the cosine of negative theta is also going to be positive 0.25. Tangent of theta is negative 2.5. Tangent is an odd function. So when we plug in the opposite sine angle, we should get the opposite sine answer. Tangent of negative theta is positive 2.5. Secant of theta, secant is 1 over cosine, so it's our other even function. If secant of theta is negative 2.3, then the secant of negative theta is also negative 2.3. E, cosecant, is 1 over sine. So that means it's an odd function. If the cosecant of negative theta is positive 7.1, then the cosecant of positive theta is negative 7.1. Cotangent, another odd function. If the cotangent of negative theta is negative 3, the cotangent of positive theta is positive 3. What I would suggest is that you pause the recording right now, take a shot at exercise 8, and then unpause the recording and double check your answers. So exercise 8, number 1. Ooh, what happened to my ABCD? Cosine is an even function, so if the cosine of theta is 0.5, the cosine of negative theta is 0.5. Tangent is odd on 2, so if tangent of theta is 2.9, tangent of negative theta is negative 2.9. 3, sine of negative theta is negative 0.45, so sine of positive theta is positive 0.45. And 4, if the secant of negative theta is 4, then the secant of positive theta is also 4. See you on page 9.